The president of Finland has told me Europe needs to engage with Mr. Trump and Trump's way of conducting foreign policy. President Alex Stubb says that Donald Trump handles matters differently than predecessors, and he pointed to, for example, to Iran and to Venezuela as two core examples. President Trump's also been highly critical of America's closest allies. Only yesterday at the cabinet meeting, Mr. Trump said they are not there when you need them. President Stubb has been called the Trump whisperer for his ability to communicate with Mr. Trump. And the Finnish president said his approach is rooted in pragmatism.
Well, I think the starting point is that you'll know I'm pro-European, pro-American, therefore, by definition, a pro-transatlanticist. So I try to do everything in my power to make sure that the transatlantic marriage lasts. Having said that, I don't think you should base your foreign policy on ideals or on a utopia. Deal with the world as it is, not as you would wish it to be. And we have to understand that the way in which the United States projects power right now around the world, whether it's Venezuela or whether it's Iran or whether it's Ukraine, is quite different from what it used to be. This doesn't mean that we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It means that we need to engage. So there will be some things that we disagree on. Then there will be things that we will agree on, and let's work on it. My main focus right now, of course, is on Ukraine. And there, I've had extremely good cooperation with the Americans. I spoke with people close to the negotiations just 2 days ago.
On a more, I suppose, a more personal level, how difficult has it been for you coming to terms with, I mean, the pragmatism obviously comes through in the end, but all the rules by which you had lived your sort of foreign policy experience have changed in the last 2 to 3 years as vis-a-vis the transatlantic relationship. And that does take, first of all, the 7 stages of grief, as some would say, before you finally realize and have to accept and move on with what we've got.
Well, I think we Finns are very pragmatic. So, we don't lament the past. We don't over dramatize it. We don't over rationalize it. We try to find solutions. And, the starting point is to say that there are 3 things that are driving global change right now. One for us is Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. The other one is a changing American foreign policy, which, of course, the administration has outlined very clearly in the national security strategy and the national defense strategy. And then thirdly, there's a drive of the global south where we see demography and economic power through technology shifting. And foreign policy is never static. I mean, I'm just pleased that I was able to live in this end of history moment for about 30 years after the end of the Cold War when I finished my studying. And now we are in a new kind of a world order. We're all trying to understand it. We're all trying to mitigate. We're trying to be diplomatic. The only worry I, of course, have is that a lot of the local conflicts have now become regional, and these regional conflicts have global implications. And this is what diplomacy is about. Let's work at it. Let's not shed tears about the past.
On the economic front, Quest means business after all. On the economic front, very difficult now as nations are grappling with higher energy costs. They're having to reduce energy taxes just simply so that people can pay their bills. And there is going to come, I mean, we've seen it in some of the elections. We've seen it in by-elections in Britain. We've seen it in the growth of reform. There is an attraction to right and far right parties. You're familiar with the concept in your own country as well. There has been, it's going to be very difficult for European traditional politics to deliver for their people as they would, as the population seem to want to expect. And that's a real worry.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Of course, as president of Finland, I deal mainly with foreign policy, which is a completely different kettle of fish from domestic policy, fiscal policy, or economic policy for that matter. But I think the problem of narratives that we have globally in a lot of liberal democracies is that you have this one side that says that, we need to detach ourselves, we need to go domestic, we need to go national, we don't need to do any cooperation, globalization is bad. And then suddenly you see something like the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and that impacts 20% of the world economy. It hits our energy prices. So we start to understand that the world is much more interlinked than the narrative coming from the other side. And I think a lot of politicians need to be more honest about it. Globalization is not the save-all system, but it has a lot of good elements, and it's always about trying to find a balance, whether you are in a liberal democracy in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, or North America, or Latin America, for that matter.
Let me finally let me into a secret. When you play golf with Mr. Trump, do you play to win?
Yes, because we were on the same team and we won. President Trump is a very good golfer, and we won.
And if you were on the other side, would you play to win, or is that best left with a diplomatic silence?
I'm quite competitive, so I wouldn't go for that. But I guess I'm not sure I would win.